Our forecasting process goes pretty deep within the organization. It also goes pretty wide. It starts with our frontline sales rep. They're the ones who own their individual forecast from a deal by deal perspective. Everything from our frontline sales reps and CSMs all the way up to our C level. It all starts with the sales process, having a very clean sales process with clear stages, exit criteria. We utilize MedPick internally, ensuring that we have all of the necessary information around champions, around decision-making process, et cetera. That's the first step to accurate forecasting, right? Second, when it comes to the actual forecasting process, it's a multi-pronged process that we run within Iterable now, and that I found success with. That is, the reps reviewing deals on a weekly basis with their managers, managers with directors, directors with VPs. That is how we kind of get to our bottoms up forecast, our deal by deal look at the quarter, looking at each opportunity within a specific forecast category of commit, forecast, and best case. That is then reviewed with our senior leadership across Iterable on a weekly basis as well to understand, how our Americas team versus our EMEA team versus our CS team forecasts are all coming together to achieve our board goals. In parallel to that, our operations team and our BI team run a number of different probability models around our pipeline generation and forward-looking forecasts and our ability to hit our forward-looking targets, as well as systematic weighted forecasts to understand projections based off open pipeline and close rates by stage. So I think the main thing to successful forecasting is looking at it a number of different ways, and then compiling all of the different forecasts you're getting to arrive at a confident number for a given quarter or calendar year.
Well, that was a really cool breakdown. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you talk to me about outcomes? How do you define success in your forecasts? What are the things that you're looking to achieve from your forecasts?
Yeah. One, clarity, right? It's important that we understand clarity around the forecast. If we are in a position where we're expecting a beat, that's obviously great, but if we're expecting a miss, that triggers a lot of subsequent actions around pipeline goals, targets, ensuring that we're building enough to kind of create and close opportunities within the period. Sometimes it means investing in pipeline generation through marketing and BD that has a faster time to close within Iterable. So that is definitely one thing. It informs kind of our pipeline strategy in the short term and what we need to do in order to set ourselves up for success. The other main outcome that we look at as we're, hoping to be a public company one year is forecast accuracy, right? It's really important that we're getting within 5 to 10% of our pre-quarter, pre-year calls on a quarter in, quarter out basis, not only for the sales and CS departments, but also getting more granular into our regions and our territories.
Well, okay, so clarity and also forecast accuracy. You could potentially have touched on this because you said who is involved in the forecasting, but how deep in the organization does the forecasting go? And do you reckon success changes as you go through different levels?
Yes, absolutely. Our forecasting process goes pretty deep within the organization. It also goes pretty wide. I mean, it starts with our frontline sales reps, right? They're the ones who, own their individual forecast from a deal by deal perspective. So it's everything from our frontline sales reps and CSMs all the way up to our C level, CFO, COO, CEO here at Iterable. As you might expect, the managers, directors, and VPs are the ones with generally more experience with forecasting, and they tend to be more accurate than some of our field reps, especially in our emerging segment, which is most closely aligned to the SMB market, just because those are newer reps, and forecasting is a muscle that you need to learn, just like any other skill within sales and CS.
Okay, that's a great point. So it's something that you kind of need to get used to.
Yeah, precisely. It takes time to really understand how to accurately call deals, understand time to close, make sure you have all that information. And we spend a lot of time internally, either through operations or through management, to ensure reps have the tools in their tool belt to up level that skill as they continue their careers with us here at Iterable.
Brilliant. Okay, so that actually moves me on very nicely to the question of, you know, humans, they're always really against change. And when something's new, as you've just described, you have to get used to all the changes and all the information you need to submit. What would you say the key considerations are for driving adoption of a new process or a new forecasting process?
Yeah, it's a great question. First and foremost, visibility and understanding of the objectives that we're trying to achieve through a new process. I think as long as sales and CS reps understand the why behind the change in the process, there's a much higher likelihood of adoption, short-term and long-term, with any new process that you roll out. The other thing is, we want our sales reps to be hitting their goals. We want them to be making money, right? And that intention is also something that's very important, right? People need to know that it's not being asked of them in terms of a new process just to ask them to do more work, taking time away from actual selling and communicating with customers. But the reasoning here is so that we can ensure that reps are successful, that we can identify any gaps potentially in pipeline or any challenges to hitting their forecast early, and we can make organizational changes or provide organizational support to teams or individuals in order to get them to their numbers longer term. So it's very much about ensuring that they know that the reasoning behind all of this is to ensure their success, as well as the company's ability to accurately project numbers out to the board and hopefully one day public shareholders.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Okay, so it's kind of thinking about what's in it for me,
Yep,
making it relatable to them.
precisely.
Well, okay, can we move on to reporting? I know it's quite broad, but do you have any tips for a really great reporting? What are the key things that you're looking for from making reports or driving reports in general?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, know your audience, right? Depending on who the reports are for, what visibility you're trying to provide to certain levels within the organization, the level of complexity changes significantly, right? You really want to make things simple for the sales team. We don't want people bogged down trying to figure out the data, trying to figure out what the data means, right? So with kind of our sales team, our field reps, we really want to provide clarity and simplicity when it comes to reporting. When you take it up to C-level financial reporting, operations reporting, that's where you see some of the more in-depth modeling, some of the deeper statistics that we like to measure, and some of the forward-looking probability modeling. Those are things that, while they can be useful to go through with sales reps and managers from time to time, they're not as useful to put on dashboards and things like that you want them to monitor day in and day out. So I would say, boiling it down to one key area to focus on is know your audience.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Dan, when it comes to how you got to your forecasting world today, how long do you think that took you? And do you think there's anything you would have done differently if you could start from scratch?
That's a great question. I would say forecasting, just like anything else, matures over time within an organization. When you're starting out, I joined Iterable when we were 18 people. Back then, every rep, every deal that's being worked. You're much closer to all of the opportunities for the company, right? And because of that, the forecasting is a little bit simpler. right?
Mm.
There's not as many variables to work with and things like that. Over time, we started moving first into kind of a Google Sheet type of forecasting where things are kind of ported in using G Connector through Salesforce, and then finally into our most final state that we've been at so far, utilizing a tool for it. I think, looking back, things that I would have done differently, right? Really thinking through the sales process in terms of exit criteria and stage definitions a little bit more, as well as building that sales process into Salesforce a little bit earlier. Those are areas where it just makes it easier for managers and VPs to really do deal reviews without having to sit down and have long conversations with the frontline reps
Mm.
in order to understand the health of a deal and the probability of it closing. So we've gotten to a point where we have very clear stage definitions, exit criteria, and really anybody in the organization is able to go into our forecast tool and understand, what information we do have and don't have.
Mm.
But starting out at Iterable, is a lot of one-on-one conversations, team meetings, things like that, which just took a little bit more time. And you obviously want your sellers and your CSMs or account managers that are in charge of renewals to be focused on those customer or prospect relationships rather than metric reviews
Mhm.
with their superiors as much as possible. So that's the biggest change I would have made. I expect it to continue to evolve and mature in terms of our forecasting process as Iterable continues to grow. Like I said, as we expand into new regions and things like that, there will be added level of complexity.
Mhm.
You start talking about different currencies that you bill in and things like that, which add another level of complexity. So, when you look at forecasting, you can't ever really look at it as like an end state, right? You always have to
Mm.
be looking for ways to improve it and ways to make it more clear and more accurate over time.
Mm. So, do you think this whole process of improving the forecast is this a team effort, or do you think it's more ops focused?
Oh, it's definitely a team effort, right? Operations can do a lot with data and surfacing that, but at the end of
Mm.
the day, um, you need input from a lot of different people in terms of what's working, what's not working, and areas where we can improve in order to make the necessary changes to the process. So, whenever we look at redoing our forecasting model, if we ever look to change tools, things like that, it starts with understanding the feeling behind how things are currently working from all
Mm.
levels of the organization, and then partnering with people within sales and CS to roll out better, more accurate processes in the future.
Mm. Could you quickly touch on a cadence? So, like, how often would this communication be, and who would it be with?
Sure. Um, so from like a process perspective, it's a weekly basis.
Mhm.
In terms of kind of auditing the process and ensuring, we're making necessary adjustments moving forward. Um, it's probably a monthly basis that we really take a hard look at ourselves and are like, can we be doing this better?
Mm.
What were we calling for a certain month based off where we ended up and what was the accuracy with that call? If there was a big delta for some reason, then we figure out, is there a better way to run a forecast process to identify these potential risk areas within the forecast, right? And
Mhm.
provide more of a forecasting range of your commit versus your upside, rather than just a one number approach to it. So um, I would say, yeah, on a monthly basis, we really look at the accuracy. We review that with CFO, COO, VP of sales. And then, we don't make adjustments on a monthly
Mhm.
basis. We probably make adjustments on a semi-annual to annual basis, but we want to be tracking all of the things that are going well and potentially growth opportunities within the process as well, on a pretty regular basis.